There's a number of options that we have for moving around. And we'll walk in. Now this is a little meeting space, and you'll see there's people. Oh, there's nobody in here right now, but we can sit down and get comfy. These are actually locations that have been set up that will allow us to can actually sit here and interact with people. Now there's nobody around right now, and that's just fine because I really don't want to get too much into that. One of the really neat things about the way that you interact with other people in Second Life is you can do it with audio. There is the ability to do audio chat. Now it tells me that nobody nearby has audio enabled, and that's again fine, but I can turn that on and actually use my headset to speak to other people. And when you're having conversations and there's a large number of people around, you can actually zoom in so that you're listening specifically to one person, or you can zoom out and listen to the conversations that are taking place around you. And it's very, very realistic. Depending on how you're oriented, where you're looking, you listen to people that are in that direction, but you can still hear people in the periphery. I'm going to just get us out of here. Now you can see there that the animation isn't perfect. There's a reason for that. This is literally downloading and building as we move through it. And so depending on how complex the environment is and how fast my connection is and things like that, things will happen as quickly as they can. Now, if walking around isn't fast enough for you, we actually have the ability to fly, which is kind of cool. So we can move around the island and the space, find things that we want to find. Now, if you really would like to take a look at this, in all honesty, you have to set up an account and spend a little bit of time trying to get in there. There's a bunch of introductory tutorials that will walk you through moving around the islands and using your avatar and setting your avatar up and things like that. It's if you have the time, it is something that is kind of interesting to play with. We see here I've got a number of different outfits and things that I can put on my avatar and stuff like that. That's really all that I wanted to show you. What I wanted to talk about more than anything is the research that's being done. I did a quick search in Eric for virtual environments, and there's 348 articles directly related to virtual environments. If you do a search specifically for Second Life, I believe you come up with 5 to 10, depending on how you spell it and things like that. But there are a lot of other articles dealing more generally with the whole use of virtual environments in education. It's a very hot topic, and it's starting to be closely tied to game theory and gaming in education. A lot of polarization taking place in the art in the literature. Some people are really for this type of learning environment and the types of interactions that students can get. Some groups are very against it because it can create more alienation and allow students to isolate themselves even further. Not to mention the fact that some students who are prone to isolation tend to drift towards fantasy versus reality, and this gives them an outlet for immersing themselves even further into a fantasy environment. So there is some real polarization in the research. But that said, there's a lot of really interesting stuff starting to come out of some of these things. Science education is really starting to take a look at virtual learning and things like that. So it's definitely something that's worth looking at. As far as the strengths and weaknesses of it, in an environment like the one that we're involved in right now, the benefits can be huge because, like I said, it creates a physical sense of community, whereas we don't have that. We're trying to create as much support for each other as we can through discussion and through conversations and group work and things like that, but we really lack that feeling of physical proximity to anybody. We do feel isolated. And it's work to try and immerse ourselves or to engage ourselves and others in the classroom environment. This can go a long way to breaking those barriers down. And like I said, I've experienced it firsthand, participating in a conference, and I was a huge skeptic. It's something that I've been wanting to take a look at because I've read the literature, and I didn't buy it. Quite honestly, I didn't believe it. I didn't see the value that researchers were seeing and that students who were using these environments were seeing. And it wasn't until I actually did something meaningful in Second Life that I started to see the value. It's difficult to get a real understanding by playing in Second Life because it's you spend your time looking at it as a toy. But if you engage in something meaningful, like one of the SD socialization events or a speaker session or something like that, then you can really start to see the potential for a tool like this. Cons, again, I've talked a bit about the sense of isolation and the removal from wanting to interact in a real world environment, and this creates a fairly powerful outlet for that, which for some students is really not the direction that we want them to go. So that's Second Life, that's a virtual environment. Interesting, something worth taking a look at if you have some time. Its practicality in your classroom is going to be totally up to you. I mean, if you decided that you wanted to do a virtual learning experiment and actually interact with another group of students, and you didn't have access to video conferencing or something like that, it would be an interesting way to have a speaker come into your classroom. And believe it or not, more and more speakers out there are actually training themselves and using Second Life to engage classrooms and schools in speaking engagements. So something worth taking a look at. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting. Good luck with that.